Shall we start? Thank you very much. And dear colleagues, I would like to start our today panel discussion from declaration to action, advancing global standards and the EU competitiveness in sustainable chemical management. We have with us great experts in the field, and I'm really appreciate that you take your time to join us here. Starting from the Kay Williams, head of the Global Framework on the Chemicals Secretariat from the United Nations Environmental Programme, to the Bob Diderich, the head of division and environmental directorate from the OECD, and the Folco Ciulli, executive director of the European Region Network. Unfortunately, our president, Mr. Tomasz Zieliński, cannot join us today, and therefore I will try also, with the help of Folco, bring some more industry perspective to the discussion. I know this is like a quite big shoes to fill, but I will do my best to fill. To set the scene, I would like to invite you to first watch just a 1.5 minute of movie advertising the global framework on chemicals.
The power of chemistry is a force as old as the universe itself. Now in human hands, synthetic chemicals are used in the clothes we wear, the roads we travel, the food we grow, and the medicine we take. A $1 trillion industry, woven into the fabric of modern life. But at what cost? 1.8 million people die each year because of chemical pollution, most from low and middle-income countries. 1 in 3 children have dangerously high blood lead levels. Toxins seep into rivers, air, soil, into us. Every decision we make about how we produce, use, and dispose of synthetic chemicals shapes the world we live in. The Global Framework on Chemicals provides a path to manage chemicals and waste responsibly. It strives to reduce chemical pollution, to strengthen regulations, to promote safer alternatives, and to ensure that industries and governments work together. With 5 strategic objectives and 28 targets, the Global Framework on Chemicals is a pact to collaborate, to innovate, and mobilize the world to change. Because synthetic chemicals are not just science, they hold the power to make our lives better. Join us in building a safer, more sustainable future.
After this very short introduction, I think that there's 2 messages from the movie, and also which is very important to the global framework itself. First one is that the chemicals are essential for achieving all of the sustainable development goals. This is also the message from the global framework for the chemicals. And the second message is that the structure of the chemical management in the world is uneven. Sitting here in Europe, when we have benefit from the very advanced regulation, and also our companies which goes far beyond the obligation they have to, it is easy to forget that it is not the case in all over the world, and therefore it is so important to also engage in the cooperation on the global level, because this is not only like a moral obligation for the developing countries, but it is also much more. And I think this in today's discussion we will try to look for all those incentives which the chemical industry have in actually going into it. Because this is not just the issue of the reputation. Whenever some accident happen or the chemicals are misused somewhere else in the world, unfortunately it also affects the chemical reputation of our companies, which actually doing great things, and they are providing their products in a very sustainable way. Therefore, I would like to start with Kay. to begin with, Kay, could you just describe for us what it is, this global framework on chemicals, and how it is structures and yeah.
Okay. I think is this on? Yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction. Delighted to be here. Some of you may, I think, know about the framework, but if you don't, this is a global framework that was adopted in 2023 in Bonn, and it consists of 3 elements. I think some text with some ambitious targets, 28 targets, 5 strategic objectives, many of which have to be achieved by 2030 or 2035. It also has political support because whilst being a voluntary non-binding framework, it is there was a political declaration that stressed the urgency of taking action on chemicals globally, and we also have a financial fund that is able to support projects in the developing countries around the world. So in terms of what the framework can do, it is multi-stakeholder, it is multi-sectoral, everyone has an equal voice, and we work really closely with international organizations, including the OECD, the FAO, the WHO, ILO, etc., to achieve what we're trying to get forward. Is it the big one? Yes. So the reason why does it matter, and I was very interested by the plenary sessions that were held this morning about how the EU is ambition. Is that right? Well, yes, the ambition that the EU has had, that's a really great thing. What I was hearing was how do you implement and keep that ambition, but how do you address it? And I think one of the ways that we can address the ambition is by looking a little bit wider, looking more globally and raising the standards globally. And that's where I think that we can fit in with this global framework. We can work across the world with governments, industry, NGOs, and we can work together to raise standards so that, in fact, in terms of competition, that places the EU in a better place to compete and to trade with other countries in the world. So I won't go through all these statistics, but just to let you know the impact of some of the global supply chains, that every 30 seconds, workers are dying because of exposure to chemicals. So we need to be taking action. The statistics are there. We need to be working together to raise standards, and we can do that. Now, this is a bit intimidating, but just to make some of you aware, we do have an international meeting coming up. It's got it will have hopefully an exciting agenda, even though that's a very busy agenda here. I can show you the strategic objectives at the top, but the one that you may be interested in is about raising national legislative frameworks, which is really key. I think we need to, there are many countries in the world that don't have strong institutional capacities in the area of chemicals. We need to be looking not only at chemicals management systems, but also down the product chains. We need to be looking at legislation such as extended producer responsibility, not only within the EU and getting it right in the EU, but also globally. And we do have, in terms of working with industry, we have some strategic objectives that are known as Strategic Objective D, where we're looking at safer alternatives, working with the private sector in particular, and sustainable solutions. So in terms of where the sectors that we're looking at and focusing, electronics, textiles, healthcare are really key sectors that we want to take forward. And then I just really wanted to promote on this point, we do have a multi-stakeholder day, which is accessible through hybrid links. If you're interested, we do recommend that you go and have a look at some of these sectors, because we talk about things like chemical footprinting methodologies. We're looking at what are the chemicals of concern that need to be focused on and prioritized, as well as looking how can we look at and shift the disclosure and financial disclosure and standards frameworks moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kay. You mentioned all those statistics, and it is really. I think it's also show how different approaches to the chemical management around the world. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, not every country can have as good regulation as we have in Europe, which provide such a high level ambition and such a high level of safeness. Could you tell me a little bit more, given this unequal landscape, how important is regulatory consistency? And is there also in your do you think it's also helped to put also fairer global competition in case of leveling field in the level of ambition in different countries, and especially in developing countries?
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think we've talked a lot about competitiveness, and I think part of the issue about not being competitive is that there is a different playing level. There is not a level playing field in all countries. There are some countries that really do have no very limited regulation. And what we're looking at, because these chemicals are transboundary, is what can we do to actually bring those standards up to more the level of some of the developed countries in particular. So I do think consistency helps. It helps with trade. It helps with these global supply chains. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's where we need to mobilize and work together, which is where we look to the private sector to also help us work to raise those standards together with the government alongside which we sit. Thank you.
Thank you. And when you was introducing the global framework, you mentioned about the multi-stakeholder engagement and about the equality between the different stakeholders. And can you explain it a little bit to our audience, whether it means that the industry have like an equal voice to the governments and to other stakeholders in this process?
Yeah. So I don't know if many of you are involved with any international agreements, multilateral environment agreements, but especially in the chemicals space, they're mostly for governments who are then parties. Now, the global framework is not legally binding, but it's got a political nature. It's politically binding, if you like. But the beauty of not being solely owned by parties and countries is that it means that industry does have an equal voice alongside non-governmental organizations, alongside academics, and alongside the government. So there really is a true opportunity to be able to influence and work together to co-create whatever is needed to bring standards up.
Okay, so you mentioned that the industry have like an equal chance to shape the framework, and we also hear a little bit about the ambition of the framework, about the targets you have, about the objectives, but how do you operationalize your actions? Is it because I heard that there's industry implementation programs as well envisaged in the framework, and what is it and how it works?
Thanks for the question. So the emphasis on the framework is very much about implementation, because we've been trying to get action and make things happen for a number of years now. So up at the moment, it's not about negotiations, it's about implementing. And we have a concept called a global implementation program, where we're trying to bring together and bring a bit of coherence about the many activities that are going on in the world, and try to identify gaps, to bring stakeholders together so that it can learn off each other, but also co-create where necessary, create standards where necessary, but also share those standards which have been developed by others so that we don't end up with duplication. So the global implementation programs are that forum where we hope to bring everybody, the different actors together. And as I say, this is at a global level, so we have representatives from every region. So hopefully by doing that, we're able to make progress in a unified way.
Thank you very much for incentive information about the framework. I think that in fact there is a lot of chance for the industry to engage further in that and also help to create this better world together. But let me also a little bit talk about the strategic objectives and what actually the benefit can be for the industry to engage in this five different strategic objectives. So starting from the first, the building legal and institutional framework, it is something which definitely helping the leveling playing field. We talk about it a lot, that the industry in the developed countries, in Europe especially, have a lot of obligation, which is good, coming from in terms of the health and environmental protection. But it is not necessarily the same issue for all other actors in different regions. Therefore, by helping them to prepare their legislation, it's a little bit of win-win situation. When, in one hand, you're helping to help them to develop their own legislation, which increase the level of protection of the workers, environment, and environment and people, and other thing is also changing this distance between the what actually those companies need to do in compared to what the companies in EU have to do. So that's the one thing. The other thing is the B, which is mostly about improving access to the knowledge and data, and I think we will be having a chance to talk about that with Bob, so I will not go very deeply in that, but there's definitely incentives in having like a global harmonized system of classification or the mutual acceptance of data in case of to avoid the cost duplication or tests, reduce technical barriers to trade, and make easier for companies to comply across the market. The C is about the addressing priority issue of concern, and I think this is very important to. This is something which, when I was engaged in SciChem, something which was the easiest to explain. What is the issue of concern? It's just the typical the things which the general all stakeholders identify as the issue which need the join global actions. And for example, taking into example the issue of lead in paint, we forgot about this issue in Europe because we have a legislation in place. But as you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, it's a lot of problem in that regards in the world. And for example, by helping the countries to develop the legislation in the field of to get rid of lead from the paint, we also create a market from the lead-free paints, which have equal good properties from Europe, for example. So that's actually helping also to create the market for our more sustainable products. And also the issue of the driving of innovation. This is something which has to be mentioned because truly speaking, in case of the competitiveness, when we have such a huge difference in the terms of price of the energy, we cannot compete with the price with China and other places in the world. The innovation seems to be like the one thing which we still have this market competitiveness advantages. And the last but not least is the implementation and impact. And while we in Europe are focused on even driving international demand for a cleaner product through initiative like the Clean Industrial Deal or Green Public Procurement, we should also be doing more to extend the global demand on the type of high quality, safe and sustainable solution we proud to produce here in Europe. So that's what I would like to underline in case of the incentives for the European industry. But having said that, I would like to ask Bob. Bob, you are here in the double hat. From one is from the OECD, and the second one is you are also the IOMC representatives in the Global Framework Bureau, and which consists of those organizations. Can you tell us a little bit about the work of IOMC in this regard, and then we will go to the workshop you recently have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Szymon. Yes. So the IOMC is unique in the sense that it is a coordination mechanism between international organizations. And the history is that in 1992 at Rio Sustainable Development Conference, countries said, international organization, you need to get your act together. It's unacceptable that you're duplicating work, that you're spending our money on the same things. So please coordinate between yourselves and make sure that our money is used efficiently. And so that's what we did. We got together and we founded the Inter-Organization Program for the Sound Management of Chemicals, the IOMC, with the prime objective to coordinate our work, make sure we don't duplicate, make sure we work together. And over the years, the IOMC has also become a forum where we work together, we have joint projects, and where we try to speak with one voice within international treaties or international frameworks like the GFC. So at the GFC, we try to speak with one voice. And we have now, and so we also are making sure that we are the interlocutor of stakeholders at the global framework on chemicals for any requests that international organizations should take on. So within the global framework on chemicals, the IOMC, I think it's mentioned more than 30 times, with many requests of please do that, please do this, and we're trying to do indeed some of the work that we have been asked to do. One of the main activities right now is what Kay mentioned, is the implementation programs of the global framework on chemicals, and we're focusing on 2 implementation programs that mimic the overall objectives of the GFC. And the first one is helping countries to establish their legal frameworks for managing chemicals. And the second one is about greening the value chains. How can we help? How can we help industry to move towards more sustainable solutions, get rid of chemicals of concern, and so on. So these are 2 of our focus areas right now when it comes to helping with the implementation of the GFC.
Thank you very much. It's really impressive. I think that even the logos are impressive. Such a huge collaboration of the international organization in one common goal is great. In the February, IOMC had a workshop on exactly the topic of our today's discussion, the industry engagement in the Global Framework on Chemicals implementation program, which brings together companies, association, and institutions to explore how to turn the framework ambition into real sector-based action. And Bob, could you share with us a few insights from the workshop how the global framework is now received by the industry representatives, and what the incentives was identified during this workshop.
Yeah. All right. Somebody's having fun somewhere. All right. So, how is the GFC being received by industry stakeholders? Overall, quite positively. There's lots of interrogations by industry stakeholders, and especially sector representatives and sector industry associations like the textile industry and others, is about what are we committing to when we are engaging with the implementation program. What is it that you're expecting from us, and what is it that we're committing to, and are we going to get in trouble here? And one of the other hurdles we found out is that we use a lot of UN language that is completely nebulous to industry stakeholders, and they have no clue what we're talking about. So we need to adapt our language and make sure that what we're asking for and what we're the objectives that we're trying to set ourselves are indeed comprehensible to industry stakeholders, and especially downstream users and industry sectors that are not used to work with in an international UN context. So those are some of the hurdles that we're having.
Thank you very much, Bob. I understand that the OECD mission is not only focused on the global framework, but in case of you are promoting the global standards like on your regular basis, and the OECD has a long history in chemical management. Could you briefly outline the scope of the environmental health and the safety program and the main tools offers to governments and industry?
All right. Just very briefly, what is the OECD program on chemical safety all about? So you can imagine each of the participating organizations of the IOMC, they all have their specificities. The specificity of the OECD is that we are mainly engaging in the development of technical tools for chemical risk assessment. Why is that? So the OECD program has two objectives that are equally valid. One is to protect human health and the environment, and the other one is to help countries with being more efficient in implementing their chemical safety legislations. Why is that? All countries have the same problem. They have 100,000 chemicals on their market, many of which have not been properly assessed for their safety. There's 1,000 new chemicals that are coming on the market every year, and making sure that they are used safely, making sure that their risks are properly assessed, is incredibly resource intensive. Just testing for new chemicals or testing for existing chemicals that have not been appropriately tested is incredibly expensive, and assessing the safety of chemicals is expensive for industry as well as for governments. So it makes sense that everybody is using the same tools for assessing the safety of chemicals. That way, work done in one country can be reused in another country, and thereby you're maintaining a high level of safety, but you're significantly reducing the costs. And that's the way we're doing it, by developing a harmonized instrument for the risk assessment of chemicals through, for example, test guidelines, principles of good laboratory practice, tools for predicting the effects of chemicals, and so on, standards for exchange of information, and so on. We ensure, or by using those tools, countries ensure the safe use of chemicals, and they increase the efficiency and are able to share work between countries, avoid duplication of testing, avoid non-tariff trade barriers, and so on. So that's the way. That's the specificity of the work of the OECD. I have a couple more slides. If you could take the next one.
Sure. It doesn't work, maybe because of the storm.
Oh, it was a storm? Okay.
Hopefully, it was the storm. Can we ask for the next slide, please?
It's all frozen. There we go. And through the harmonization of the tools, as I said, we reduce costs, and we managed to actually estimate to some extent the money that we're saving governments and industry, and we came up with a figure of 309 million euros every year that we're saving our countries and our industries through the harmonization of the tools at the level of the OECD. And one of the core tools that allow for these savings are a decision between countries on the mutual acceptance of data, which basically says if you use OECD standards to generate data on the properties of your chemicals, on the safety of your chemicals, that data will be accepted in all OECD countries, as well as countries that have adhered to this standard. And there's quite a number of non-member countries that have adhered to this standard. So gradually that means that these standards are becoming global.
Thank you very much. Your slide highlighted the concept of efficiency and even showed the estimation, how much can we save for that. That's industry really appreciate that kind of of approach. Could you elaborate on the practical business benefits of the OECD instruments, bringing especially in terms of time, cost, and also, I think, most important, innovation?
Yeah. It turns out that one of the drivers right now of all of the test guidelines we're developing is to move away from animal testing. So almost all of the new test methods that we're harmonized test methods that we're developing are based on cell cultures, are based on alternative methods, including computer simulations, thereby further reducing the time and the money needed for properly assessing the properties and the safety of chemicals. The overall aim here is that at the end of the day, we have tools in place that allow companies to assess the safety of chemicals already at research and development stage, that are quick, that are fast and cheap, and take a limited amount of time to implement, and that are sufficiently robust that they can also use for the regulatory stage once the chemicals are on the market, once they have to be submitted to REACH or other legislations around the world, so that there are no more surprises. If your work at the R&D stage on the safety of chemicals tells you, okay, this is probably okay, then there should not be surprises. So the tool at the regulatory stage. So the tools that you want to use should be sufficiently robust for that, but cheap enough so that you can use them to screen your R&D chemicals. So that's basically where we're trying to head.
Thank you very much for that. I think that the OECD has done a marvelous job in this regard on the data quality and sharing, and how those digitals and methodological tools support further saving for companies.
Yeah, one of the big cost posts of companies is to write up dossiers for submission to regulatory authorities. To gather the data, put everything into a database, use the national system for submission of data, exchange data between companies in case you need to buy data from other companies. And so it makes sense that we all use the same electronic standards for data exchange. And therefore, the OECD has developed what we call harmonized templates for electronic exchange of data, which have been included or have been implemented in the European Union in the Euclid system, which is the electronic system for submission of data to the European agencies for industrial chemicals and biocides, and which is now also used by countries outside of the European Union, like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and maybe even the United States, thereby further moving towards the ultimate goal of nothing has to be typed more than once. So companies who gather the data for regulatory submission only need to use one system in the end to submit their data. We're not there yet, but the tools exist. So companies have the leverage to lobby countries that set up their new system to tell them, look, this already exists. Please use the same tools, so that way we can reuse our data submission for all countries.
So the circularity not only of the materials but also of the data.
Exactly.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you very much for the work you've done. But the OECD is the cooperation mostly between the most developed countries in the world. And what is the role of the OECD in this global framework on chemicals implementation?
Yeah, indeed. So you've seen the 5 overall objectives of the global framework on chemicals, and there's one on making sure data is available on all chemicals so that regulatory decisions can be made. And this has a number of targets, and this is where the OECD is most active. That's where really the role of the OECD is. Make sure we have standards in place to generate the data, exchange the data, make it available to stakeholders. We also have a number of dissemination activities to make sure that that as much data is publicly available as possible. One other activity that I would like to mention here, which moves more towards the sustainable chemistry subject under the global framework on chemicals, and the implementation program on greening the value chains, and that is our work on sustainable chemistry. When you talk about sustainable chemistry, for us, the first attribute of sustainable chemistry is safety. And so when companies are developing alternatives to chemicals of concern, the first attribute that you will want to make sure about is that it is safer. What does it mean to be safer? And so we developed this guidance on making sure that we all have the same understanding of what it means to be safer. But that's not good enough. That's not the only attribute of sustainability. There are many more, like carbon footprint, like water use, like energy use, and so on. And so the question is, can we do the same work on those other attributes of sustainability? And that's one of the work that the OECD would like to work in the future. We had organized a workshop in September last year to get a feeling of what are attributes that are most relevant to further harmonize. And based on the outcome of that workshop, we will try to make a proposal on which attributes we should work on next. The aim is also to have a common understanding of, by having the common understanding of the attributes of sustainable chemistry, the aim is also for financing institutions to be able to judge what they should finance, being able to decide indeed one solution is more sustainable than another, or the new solution proposed is indeed safer than or more sustainable than what it is trying to replace. And also what we found out is that within the value chain, the different actors of the value chain communicate and ask each others, is your solution sustainable? And they all have different metrics. And so companies who are selling chemical solutions down the supply chain, down the value chain, need to comply with the demands of each of their clients, which are different when it comes to describing the sustainability of the solution. So we're hoping thereby also to bring some harmonization into that communication. Sorry, I was too long. I stopped here.
No. But it was long, but it is very important topic. The harmonization is one of the key issue we have, and also therefore I would like to also bring the Folco here into the discussion. And Folco, you represent the region, European chemical regions, which are always forerunners for turning frameworks into the real actions. And so I have a question for you, Dan. The global framework on chemicals is it's like a global framework, and we talk a lot about the global fairness and the necessity of leveling playing field. And from the regional perspective, do you see that these global efforts are relevant for the competitiveness of the European chemical cluster?
Well, Szymon, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's very interesting what I've heard until now, and global framework is absolutely fundamental, and probably Europe with its industries is at the forefront of everything. We started back the first regulation, the first directive on safer chemical industries back 1982 is the Seveso directive, which I'm Italian, and it came after a very, very bad situation that happens in this Seveso city in the north of Italy. So, but the problem, so we tried as European Union to set the rules for also for the ESG, sustainability, everything. That's amazing. But for us, you mentioned at the beginning, we should a little bit talk from the industrial point of view. For us, for our industries, which for sure we have in Europe big players, among the biggest in the world in the chemical industries, but the biggest part are small and medium enterprises. And so regulation and harmonization are very important for them to stay competitive. And the problem is not the global framework for them, is the European Union internal market. Because we have a fantastic internal market, which President von der Leyen is saying is the biggest in the world for 100 millions of consumers, whatever. The problem is that the internal market is not a single market. And then, right before us, there was in the plenary this debate on the single market, and it was nice here from pharmaceutical industry and the goods industry, two total different point of view. The pharmaceutical industry said, for us, the single market worked very well because nowadays with the European Pharmaceutical Agency, we have to ask just one authorization for the content of our medicine. The other side, the Metro, representative Metro, she said that they are present in something like 16 countries all over Europe. And she said, okay, my problem is that if I have to sell a pen in Italy, I have to package it and to disclaim it in a very different way from if I sell it in Poland. So is that a single market? No. And that is our problem for chemistry and for all the industry.
Yes, there is a need for the unification, that's for sure, and there's more work we can do in this regard. But even though we add a little bit of divergency, even here in Europe, even into the global standards, which are already very well recognized. For example, in regard to the CLP regulation, we recently adopted new hazard class. Of course, it was due to the good reasons to increase the level of safeness of people. However, it also create this divergency, and this is a challenge for the global harmonized system. For example, the countries which are working now on developing their own legislation, and they are in the accession path to the EU, they have to decide which road to take, whether they are want to go with the global harmonized system, or whether they would like to take the more advanced but divergence system from the global standard. So how do you think, is it great? Do you think is this real problem, and we will have a problem with this additional divergency in?
Someone said, problem doesn't exist only solutions and opportunities. I think that is a very, very peculiar moment. The world is changing. We are keep on thinking the way we have thought from the Second World War onwards. The world is totally different, even for Europe. So I think the important thing is these Kay mentioned and Bob showed a lot of international organization that worked very well in the last 60 to 70 years. I think now they have to change the way they work, because in this long period we had 1, 2, maximum 3 big players in all the fields, not only in chemicals. Now we have Europe, now we have US, now we have China, now we have India, now we have all the Far East countries that are players. So it's a different way to play the game. Also the question of tariff from the US, this kind of war is changing. Also the WTO and everything. So that's important. And for Europe, we tried, as I said, since 1980s to set the rules for everybody. And we were the first market buying and selling product from the other countries. It's no longer this the situation. So for Europe and for the competitive of our industries, we have to keep the level and the bar very high for all the sustainable, in a broader sense, regulation. But we also have to share with others. We cannot think we are now the big boss in the room like we did for REACH, for example. It was true, because we did REACH 20 years ago, more or less, and everybody and all the players at that time followed us, the US, the Chinese, but now maybe it's different. We have to use our big market, single market, internal market is not yet single, as a soft diplomacy. So we are the one working at the highest level for the sustainability, try to share with the others, but we are no longer in the position to impose the others.
And thank you for bringing this geopolitical aspects, because in fact, since we have this threats of 50% tariffs from the US, we are very much looking forward for the other markets as well, and other cooperation. And in this regard, can you elaborate more about? You mentioned it about the soft power of the European diplomacy and encouraging other countries to adopt REACH-like regulation. Is it helpful in this regard?
You know, I can get back what I said at the beginning. Seveso, then REACH, then other regulation show that you can be competitive, strong, and grow in a safer way. So we have to show the other big players in the game that they can continue to grow, they can continue to, their industry can be very strong and good if they are safer. I think that's the mission, I should say, of the European Union. 6 years ago, when the Green Deal started, I used to say Green Deal is an industrial strategy for sustainable growth. Then probably became something different. Now I hope the new Commission will start again to see it like an industrial strategy for growth. And if we show the world, the other big players, that you can grow with the high-level safety standard, probably they will follow us. Because anyway, even if there are different political situations in the other countries, probably nobody wants their population to suffer if they can do the same thing in a better way.
Okay, and you also have a great experience in case of cooperating with the companies, and we also know that even in Europe, when we have a really high standards, which is due to the high expectation from the regulation, but even though our companies go beyond that, and could you also explain and give us some examples of this kind of actions?
Szymon, I deal a lot with industries that start thinking safer way of production, healthier, less pollutant, much in advance than the European Union regulate or set the bar. That is the only way they have to remain competitive in the market. The energy cost is the higher in the world in Europe. The labor cost is the higher in the world in Europe. We don't have raw materials. How is it possible that we still have a lot of industry being at the best and the most competitive in the world? Because they use research and innovation. They are advanced in many things. And so the situation is that now the regulators, the European Union, sometimes should take a look of what is going on in the industries, because they are more advanced than what we think in Brussels. Because I am in Brussels since 25 years, so I have to consider myself one of the men of the bubble. And sometimes in the territories, and here comes the role of ECRN, the regions, and so the ECRN, in the territories, the industry, maybe the small one, the medium one, are much more advanced. They have to find the way to hear our voice, the voice of those who work there every day.
Thank you very much. You mentioned the competitiveness, and you mentioned being in the bubble. So maybe you also have a. We are in the EU presidency event, and you know that the motto of the EU presidency is the security. So this is like a high motto, and following on that, and having said that, we're losing this competitiveness. Do you see that there is a need for treating resilience as a part of the security? So this is like quite an open question, but I think it's a lot of behind it.
You know, that's a very, very broad question, but the answer is yes. COVID showed us, and most probably not as big as COVID, but we will have crisis in the next future. And for chemicals, COVID showed us if we don't have at least a buffer of basic chemicals in Europe, we cannot do anything. We are the best in advanced chemicals. We did the vaccine for COVID. But without the basic coming from the Far East, no vaccine would have been possible to be produced. So, yes, Europe have to try to put together all the effort, all the nations, all the member states, and starting some basic in chemistry. because we invented more or less all the industries in Europe. But chemical is one of the most advanced, and it's not thinkable that we also some European industries produces abroad, not in Europe, and then they block the production if they need. So, yes, resilience and security rely also in a little part of basics, because we need to be very advanced in everything, as I said before. But for our security, we need also to have basics. So reshoring some production, basic production here in Europe.
Okay, so you advocating for special rules for those basic chemicals which cannot be maintain competitiveness, but they are needed just for the issue of our security and the
we have depressed area, deindustrialized area that, and maybe in the next future for what's going on, for example, with the automotive industries, we will lose other jobs. We can regain jobs with not a very, very high added value for the industry, but even a small added value, it's a big one for Europe, for security in Europe, for labor in Europe.
Thank you very much. I think that we are already finished our time given here in that setting. However, before we conclude, I was planning to take to summarize the discussion, but since I have such a great expert here, I will ask you to give the last takeaways from our session. Who would like to start? I would not point out then. Okay, would you like to start? What is the highlights? If you would like to highlight one thing.
Okay, so I think, you know, I believe that to be competitive within the EU and EU industry, that we need to work globally. So I think that companies need to work globally. We need to look where we can get consistencies in standards. We need to work with sectors along the value chain. We need to raise those standards and work together really to achieve the best. Because even if you have growth without a degree of sustainability, it's a shared planet. And in fact, we all are losers if we don't take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bob, would you like to?
Yeah, I think what we all had the same message here, is that we're all striving towards a level playing field. Whether it's on legislation around the world, we want all countries around the world to have basic chemicals management systems in place that are as harmonized as possible. They will never be the same, but that are as harmonized as possible. And we all want to make sure that companies can put on the market better chemical solution, more sustainable solutions, and so that it's the level playing field that is going to get us there. Thank you.
And Folco?
It's quite hard to say something new after these two positions, which I totally support. Let me play my role as director of a regional network in Europe. To go global, you have to start local. And once again, I want to underline all the institution we have here. We don't have here the Commission, but everything. Come and look at regional solution and bring them in other region, in other places in the world, because we have a fantastic solution in our region in Europe.
Thank you very much. And for me, I would rather would like to indicate that it can be a win-win situation. That if the industry and the countries will helping to build more safer world for the developing countries, we exactly building the market for our sustainable product, which we are good in production. And this is our, I think, maybe even the last advantages in Europe. So let's use it. Thank you very much, and thank you for the great panelists. Thank you very much.